Okay. So we're dealing with item number 2 and the first presentation. Thank you.
This is what's called a hybrid application at land at Mill Farm, just north of Weston. By way of a hybrid application, certain elements are applied for in full, which means full details of those have been provided, and these are the football stadium, the supermarket, and the distribution centre. Other elements are applied for in outline, which establishes to seek the principle of those other uses. The application has brought about a large number of objections and support to it. Your officers have considered the application in terms of balance to the issues raised. It's considered that the number of positives outweigh the negatives, and for those reasons the application is recommended for approval, subject to the section.
Okay, I recognise Councillor Clayton. If you just wait a minute, Councillor Clayton, I've got to say something first of all. At the river last month in St Margaret's Hall, protocol was changed somewhat. Usually, when a layperson or a resident speaks and the item is deferred, that person is not allowed to speak again, or if an agent speaks, that agent is not allowed to speak again. A number of councillors on the Development Management Committee questioned that validity. So we've gone to the trouble of retrieving the sheet of paper and the actual protocol, and I will just read out what it says. Where an application is deferred, anyone who has spoken on the application will not be permitted to speak again unless the application has been significantly amended. Please, members, realise, if you want to change this particular information that's in front of you, you've got to go to the Audit Committee and put forward a substantial change to that. And bear in mind, this, I believe, was sorted out some 5 years ago, it might have been longer than that, by the Audit Committee. So, okay, so we'll go with this. Anyone, if there's a deferment vote and the speakers have spoken and the deferment vote comes on after the speakers have been spoken, they will not be allowed to speak again. However, having said that, Councillor Clayton, you wish to make a statement.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I fully appreciate.
Thank you, Chairman. I fully appreciate, Chairman, that there are many people in this audience today from both sides of the argument here, from the neighbours and also from the supporters. And in view of your comment there, I think we ought to just make people aware that if they're going to speak, they're going to do it today and not able to do it at a later time. However, I'd like to propose a deferment of this discussion, and I've got 4 reasons why I think we should defer. The first one is that, as we did for Riversley, I think a site visit is essential, that we as a committee visit the site and look at it in detail. Also, there is late ecology advice from Lancashire County Council Ecology Services. My third point is that we need time to allow the scale of the enabling development to be discussed. And finally, there has been a lot of reference to the local town and parish councils who have now had the opportunity to respond to the amended master plan that was submitted to them at a very late time. So those are my 4 reasons, Chairman, for requesting that this item is deferred. And I think I have a seconder for that, Chairman.
anyone to speak against the deferment, please? Straightforward vote then. All those in favour of deferment for the reasons given, please show. 6. All those against deferment, please show. Abstained? 2. There was 6 for the deferment and 7 against the deferment. So a deferment has been lost. Just a minute. Now what I stated was, if there was a deferment vote and it was won, and the people had spoken previously, yes? So what we usually have the introduction, then the speakers, and then we have a discussion, and usually we put a deferment if it's possible. Our instructions are, after that, if the speakers had spoken and a deferment vote came along, they wouldn't be allowed to speak again. Today, the deferment vote has been lost. We're going ahead with the application. All right, before anyone spoke. Now that was the reason we did it, because there was such a huge list of speakers. We were thinking about, Councillor Clayton and myself and Councillor Vickles were thinking about the speakers. All right, I wouldn't like you to be all sitting there going on for over an hour of speakers, etc., and a deferment vote put forward.
My question was, if I spoke now on highway, and I requested basically additional information that as you go through the deferment vote, that I would not be allowed to speak again. It will be deferred.
It's not going to be deferred, it's been lost. Okay. Right, now before I ask the first speaker to come along, I'd just like to explain to you that I have got a pretty long list. It's into the 20s. I've got a list of 16 speakers here. I probably think that they're going to speak against it. I ask you now, first of all, to be 1, as short as possible. 2, if you've got a long speech, 3 minutes, I will tell you to stop, I'm afraid. Please stick to the 3 minutes maximum. And the other thing is repetition. The committee are always telling me that they want things cut to the point. Please do not repeat. If someone said the things, just say, I agree with other speakers. Leave it alone. Okay. Right now, the speakers I've got on this list I've been given here starts with Robert Greenwood. If you're second, third, fourth, can you please be ready to be up to speak? Because the speakers will probably take about an hour minimum. Okay. Just pass it on. So after Robert's finished, it'll be Sasha. Okay. So if you're all ready, we'll begin.
Apologies, Chair, for that delay. I've just taken instruction. So I will speak on highway matters. The application site is located on a section of the principal road network which is already severely congested at peak times, with queues extending as far as the proposed site access from junction 3 of the M55, a distance of approximately 1.2 kilometres. Emerging and committed developments totaling approximately 580 new dwellings and employment uses have been identified, which will have the potential to impact further on this network, notwithstanding the effects of the Mill Farm proposal. Whilst a transport assessment has been provided to support the development, its findings and those of its subsequent addendums are not fully accepted by the County Council, as is clearly set out in the report before members. The County Council sets out 3 key areas of concern and seeks to validate the position taken by the Highways Agency in relation to the impact of the proposal on Junction 3 of the M55. Whilst the Highway Agency can safeguard exiting motorway traffic by its operation of the single approaches to Junction 3, weighting their operation in favour of safety on the motorway will lead to additional delay on the A585 as and when traffic flow increases on it. The transport assessment suggests that a significant proportion of southbound development traffic will be assisted by the implementation of the Preston Western Distributor. This is a view which is clearly not accepted by the County Council and which does not include the expected overall changes once traffic movements associated with other significant developments are factored in. Finally, the County Council correctly identifies that the proposed petrol filling station and services within the Mill Farm site could be attractive to motorway traffic and hence in traffic terms is likely to generate additional new trips on the local network rather than pass-by trips from the A585 alone. In light of the above, the County Council has taken a considered view of the information supplied and using its own judgment made recommendations with respect to possible mitigation of the additional traffic by encouraging the use of sustainable transport rather than off-site highway capacity improvements. One of the principles of national planning policy is to ensure that developments are promoted in locations where good access by sustainable modes of travel is readily available and so reduce the need for private vehicle use. However, in relation to the application site, it's understood that the site has a low accessibility score in the test applied by the County Council. As mitigation to improve pedestrian and cycle access, contributions towards works on the wider local network are required, and 2 signal-controlled crossings have been provided on the A585 to the north and south of the proposed site entrance. Whilst this may improve overall connectivity, the operation of these specific crossings will impact on traffic flow on the A585, introducing new delays to both existing and development traffic. Although the County Council provides a summary of its views, this summary does not provide members with an indication of the predicted levels of additional congestion, so that members can make an informed decision on the acceptability of this proposal in highway terms. Put simply, we know where the queues start now, but where will these be once development is operational?
Conclusion, please.
As such, until a clear practical indication of the residual traffic impact of the development is known, it's not possible for members to reach a sound conclusion of the impact of the proposal in highway terms, and a deferral of the application is requested until this can be made available. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Sasha Rogers.
May I say, Chair, I am concerned at the override and the fact you didn't introduce yourself. I presume you're a professional agent acting on somebody's behalf.
Sorry about that, Chair. As I say, it was the...
I'm not asking you for any more time.
Oh, no. Yes, I am a professional.
So we know what it is to do. All right. The people here, John.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm the Managing Director of Penny Anderson Associates and a professional ecologist. I'm representing the Stave, Wesham and Kirkham Group on ecology matters. We have a number of concerns about the ecology information submitted in support of the application, which we'd like to draw to your attention. Firstly, on the matter of Great Crested Newts. We consider that the Great Crested Newt survey data is insufficient on 2 counts. Firstly, the applicant has failed to survey all ponds within 500 metres of the site and with habitat connectivity to it. This is contrary to Natural England's standing advice and would include at least 4 additional ponds had it been done. Secondly, we've seen no evidence to support the applicant's view that the brook to the north of the site is a barrier to Great Crested Newts. I visited the site myself and I'm satisfied that the brook is not a barrier to newts. The survey data which has enabled the Lancashire County Council ecologist to remove her objection in relation to newts is therefore, in our view, incomplete and unreliable. The lack of full survey data means that the potential impacts of the proposed development on the European protected species cannot be established, and this in turn means that the requirements of the Habitats Directive cannot be satisfied. This leaves the planning authority at risk of legal challenge. Turning to our other major concern, the Lancashire County Council ecologist still has a number of outstanding concerns on ecology matters, as advised in her letter to Mike Atherton dated yesterday, the 3rd of June. These concerns, which we fully support, are as follows. Importantly, There is insufficient survey data in relation to bats, a European protected species, to allow an assessment of the impact of floodlighting on bat habitat. This includes potential bat roosts associated with trees along the northern boundary. The lack of survey data means that the requirements of the Habitats Directive cannot be met. Additionally, there are outstanding issues in relation to common toad and the hedgerow along the eastern frontage to Fleetwood Road. These are respectively a species and a habitat of principal importance under material planning consideration. The applicant has not yet adequately demonstrated that these features can be avoided or mitigated for. In conclusion, there are a number of ecology matters which have not yet been resolved, including the potential impact on the European protected species. To determine the planning application without first satisfying itself in regard to adequate ecology survey and mitigation is at best contrary to guidance from Natural England and DEFRA Circular 01/2005, and at worst potentially unlawful with regard to the Habitats Directive. This leaves the planning authority vulnerable to legal challenge. We see no reason why the planning application should not be deferred to allow for ecology matters to be resolved and a sound planning decision to be reached. Indeed, in our view, the committee would not be incorrect or unreasonable in refusing planning permission on the grounds of insufficient information on ecology. Thank you.
Thank you. Ian Thompson, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ian Thompson. I'm Managing Director of a growing local business, and I want to speak against this proposal from an employment perspective. The employment rate in the area is above regional national average. The claimant rate count of job seekers allowance to the authority is very low, and the rate has for a long time remained well below the country and regional national figures. Claimant count figures for the ward reveal that there's only one area of higher rates than found in some other parts of Lancashire. The amended proposal has seen the removal of the sports science building indoor sports facility. Whatever jobs this would have potentially seen generated are now obviously removed. This is to be replaced by 492 car parking spaces. Car parks do not generate employment. The outline element of the proposal includes non-food bulky goods retail, a hotel, pub and restaurant, a drive-through hot food takeaway and a petrol filling station. There are no definite assurances that these elements will ever come to fruition, and therefore no guarantee of any job creation. If they were to be built, it would have a detrimental impact on the vitality and viability of Kirkham Town Centre. The food retail store is being stated as being for an Aldi outlet. A grant of planning permission cannot be specific to any end retailer. Any food retailer could occupy the site. Jobs in this part of the overall proposal would probably be 0 hours type contracts at minimum wages. The warehouse and distribution centre is to be used for the relocated Trilanco business currently located at Polton-le-Fylde. These are not new jobs. It will lead to more traffic on the road as these employees commute to the site. Would the council feel pressured into approving housing development on all the parts of the site in the event that this proposed development was not successful? The proposed jobs would definitely not occur should this site be put over to housing in the future. Our concerns and objections as a business relate to transport and infrastructure issues, adverse impact on the time and stress occurred in journeys to and from work, less accessible and attractive place to work on our current site, which is on this route. A significant number of our employees commute from the east using the M55 and the A585. Adverse impact on access to transport network for inbound and outbound deliveries from our supply chain is a significant issue, and also safety issues for our employees. The local economic impacts to generation of Kirkham Town Centre, the missed opportunity for regeneration of empty retail units within the town settlement and brownfield sites, more suitable town centre sites for retail, the Kirkgate Centre in the town and the brownfield sites for sports stadia and leisure facilities at the Campbell's caravan site. The flawed economic model, which you can see exhibited on the screen, talks about the creation of 441 jobs, which we see as being completely over-egged. Our estimate across the mix of the development would deliver at best 130 jobs, which includes 50 relocated jobs if all the outline proposals are completed. It's harder for us to attract and retain skilled people from outside the area with already lower than national levels of unemployment, increasing the competition for labour. Thank you.
I believe it's Dr. David Charles who's speaking next. Is that right? Yeah.
Mr Chairman, members of the Planning Committee, I speak on behalf of Dr Johnson, a GP of Ashtree House Surgery, a friend and a colleague of mine who, though abroad, feels strongly enough about this development to ask him to read out a statement he's provided. I will start. I'm a local GP with some 35 years standing in the community of Kirkham and Wesham and understand intimately the health issues concerning the local population. I also understand the national drivers currently setting the agenda for the health of the nation, which has been recently publicised in national news broadcasts surrounding the projected problems of the population of Great Britain. The projected population of rural Files, particularly the over 65s, is set to double in the next 10 years, and with it we'll see a predicted rise in diseases such as type 2 diabetes, heart failure, stroke and ischemic heart disease, all of which will put considerable health economic pressure on local and national provision. This is the result of the Fire and Wire 2030 health and care strategy. All of the above conditions are fueled by an increasingly obese population brought about in part by lack of exercise and physical activity. I'm aware that the amended plans from September 2013 of the Mill Farm development, removing the Sports Science Academy from the proposals and replacing it with additional car parking. I believe that the above was an indoor facility accessible to the public as a training and conditioning centre and would go some way to meet the unmet health needs of the people of Kirkham and Wesham. The removal of this indoor facility, in my opinion, is a retrograde step and unless reinstated, I would oppose such a negative development. I do not wholly accept the contention that the provision of floodlit all-weather pitches contained within the plans fully meets the health needs. Being outdoors and very limited in the type of exercise that they can offer, especially on cold, wet nights in winter, also limits their target usage to a very narrow section of the local population. This does not go far enough to fulfil the general health needs of the local people I alluded to earlier. The health of the nation isn't just about the physical health of people, but also about the mental and emotional well-being of the community. And one must consider this in any deliberation as the impact that such a development potentially will have on local people. I have observed the socio-economic decline of the High Street in both Kirkham and Wesham over the past 35 years. The opportunities to development retail outlets in our town centres have been met in general with spectacular failure over the years, apart from a few notable exceptions. This, undoubtedly, in my opinion, has an impact on the well-being and the mental health of patients, who, by and large, also live in the community. I see the result of these anxieties as a local GP, and these in themselves can lead to more physical symptoms and conditions developing. I am concerned that such a development as proposed would promulgate these stresses and anxieties. And finally, as a local having lived in the area for nigh on 40 years and also a staunch football fan, I cannot help but think that being aware of AFC Wimbledon's decline and subsequent move to Milton Keynes and being rebranded as the MK Dons, there isn't a similar feel to this proposed development as well as the well-publicised demise of Blackpool FC this year. Can we say with certainty we will not see the migration of the Tangerine Army within the next 10 years to the suburbs of Wesham? And have you, the planners, considered this as a possibility? Are there conflicts of interest here embedded within the proposal that could drive this scenario? And that's by Dr. Tom Johnson, GP of Ashtree House.
Thank you. David, pick your hands, please.
Mr Chairman of the Committee, I'm David Pickevans. Up to the last 6 years, we have managed the drainage and kept the water flowing at an acceptable level. But since the large developments of the fields near Wesham Hospital and the fields at Crossing Gate behind Wesham Fire Station, the fields consistently underwater. I've got a plan there with all the farm fields and then in green where floods are creating. An average crop uses 7 million litres of water per hectare. The development side equals 17 hectares, so there's been an extra 119 million litres of water. Medlerbrook is overflowed all the year round compared to being flooded for about 3 months of the year. On the recently passed development site adjoining Western Plainfields, the total estimated use of water by the crops and hedges is around 44 million litres per year. When the development is completed, I am going to have to deal with this extra flood water. If this large development is passed, and it is at 14 hectares, there will be 98 million litres of excess water, which at the moment is being used by growing crops. About 50% goes into the River Ribble, and the other 50% goes into Medlerbrook. I've been in touch with the Environmental Agency. They stated that they have nothing to do with farmland and drainage, and this was by Miss Deborah Thompson. They were not in a position to comment. They still regard the protection of people and property as the priority. I also contacted United Utilities, and they only deal with domestic clean water and not land drainage. If anybody is welcome to come to a site visit, and I'll show them around what the impact is. On the land classification of this area, it is mainly Grade 2 land. And the area in dark blue, which is south of Lancashire, is Grade 1, which you can see on that map. Apart from these two areas of land, which are very small, you have to travel over to North Yorkshire before you reach any more Grade 2 land. In the Fowl area, there has been developments of 2 aerobic digester plants, which is, and possibly more. Each plant requires at least 400 acres of land to maintain and sustain their production of energy. It seems high-grade agricultural land is becoming precious. There are already large developments in Preston, Blackpool and the Fowl areas, and at the same time our government is encouraging farmers to produce 70% more food due to the estimated worldwide shortage by 2050. If we don't stop developing on good agricultural land, we are being selfish to the next generation, as we will be leaving them with a problem for food production. Previous generations left our food production and agricultural land in good order, and so we should do the same for the next. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Marjorie Towers, please.
Good afternoon. I'm Marjorie Towers. I'm joint owner of the neighbouring farm, Bradford Court. My family farmland immediately adjoining the application site to the south and west. We commercially farm about 365 acres of this location. It's in arable production or down to grass. It sustains an 160-cow dairy herd and 1,000 lamb ewes. A formal objection to the proposed drainage for the application site was submitted by P. Wilson and Company on our behalf in December 2013. We feel that the committee report available to members fails to address the views contained in that letter. Our main concern is the adverse impact the development will have on our farming operations if our adjoining land floods as a result of the development. We have prior experience of flooding when an ineffective drainage scheme was implemented when the bypass road A585 was constructed. It resulted in us suffering loss of crop, and we were forced to install a sophisticated drainage scheme to rectify the issues. The proposed development site will exacerbate this situation again. The southern part of the application site currently drains into a ditch on our land via land drains. The amended drainage scheme fails to convince us that an increased flow of water will not enter the ditch and flood our productive arable land. At the moment, all drainage is focused towards the Bradford Brook, which is at the northern end of the site. It fails to acknowledge the low-lying areas to the south of the site and where surface water will flow onto our land. The watershed between the rivers Ribble and Wyre crosses the middle of the development site. Flooding occurs now after only moderate rain at the south of the site, and the present system of pipes and ditches is inadequate. In the drainage scheme, it is stated that the proposed car parking areas will be constructed as a fully porous surface within the drains. However, it fails to state whether these will either fall into Bradford Brook or into the ditch on our land to the south, which would put our land at greater risk of flooding. We welcome the Planning Officer's recommendation for a condition stating that a surface water drainage scheme needs to be approved before any development takes place. As adjoining landowners, we rely on the land for our family's livelihood. We must be consulted and be involved in the drainage scheme for this development to ensure that our business does not suffer any incidental losses. In addition, we question whether the Bradkirk Brook to the north and the surrounding watercourses can cope with additional surface water runoff from such a large development. The impact will be felt over a wide area, distant and beyond to the north, to the west of the Kirk to the south. And I would suggest to the committee that this council may be left with a flooding problem, which will make the issues that have occurred in Lytton surrounding the area, and the Whitehill development, pale in insignificance. And I would finally ask you to note that the main sewer, which is shown on the drainage layout plan at drawing number 1 in your papers, is actually the mains water pipe which connects Blackpool with the Stocks Reservoir. That pipe carries Blackpool's water supply. It most certainly isn't a sewer. Thank you.
Frank Dodsworth.
Is currently allocated countryside. It's beautiful, green, open countryside, consisting of pasture land, woodland and ponds, which provide a mixture of habitats for many flora, fauna, birds and mammals. It provides a pleasant rural view for us as neighbours and also for the users of the 2 public footpaths that cross the site and also for road users travelling along the 585. The size and scale of these proposals, covering over 12.6 hectares, with car parks, sports pitches and buildings, will have a huge impact on ecological matters. This proposal would lead to significant prejudicial impact on the character and appearance of the countryside, as the Lancashire County Council Ecologist has referred to in a report. There will be excessive levels of lighting, particularly from the stadium and other sports pitches. The Spine Road will also be illuminated, as will the proposed warehousing and retail store. There will undoubtedly be advertising hoardings too. These will be visually detrimental in a countryside location and cause harm to some species and their habitats, not only on the application site, but in the surrounding countryside also. The National Planning Policy Framework refers to core planning principles. The proposal would be contrary to the principle which states that planning should contribute to conserving and enhancing the natural environment and prevent pollution. The proposal is also contrary to paragraphs 109 and 118 of the NPPF in respect of conserving and enhancing the natural environment and biodiversity issues. This development would be highly detrimental to the natural environment. It would see the destruction of valuable habitat, trees and hedges that harbour flora, fauna and are a home to at least 43 species of birds. There are a number of ponds on the site which would be affected, and the waterborne habitat would also be detrimentally affected. NPFF states that the development should have an environmental rule and should contribute to protecting and enhancing our natural environment, helping to improve biodiversity. This application would clearly destroy the natural environment, both on the site and in the immediate vicinity of it. Biodiversity would be harmed and not improved. I would appeal to the committee to reject this application. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Chairman and the rest of the Council. I'm speaking on behalf of the retailers. We are an auto sports shop on Kirkham High Street. We are an independent auto spares and cycle shop. We've been open as an auto spares shop for the last 50 years and a cycle shop for the last 10 years. Our family have owned the business for 15 years and expanded it and extensively expanded it and doubled its size in the last 5 years. We have put our time, effort and money into the premises, and we are very proud of what we have achieved. We aren't just there to make a living, we also provide an outstanding service for the community through fitting car parks, cycle servicing and general advice. Customer satisfaction is our main objective, and we are often noted on the presentation of our shop and the helpfulness we provide. This is key to us as we rely a lot on repeat custom. The NPPF set out a national threshold 2,500 square metres for required impact assessment. The Fylde have adopted their own lower threshold of 750 square metres. Therefore, the ALDI proposal should be subject to an impact assessment to assess the impact of vitality and viability in Kirkham Town Centre. Taking footfall away from our shop and others alike in Kirkham will not only result in future hardship, but take away the essence of what people love in our town: customer service, convenience and familiarity. This will only be replaced by big chain brands that only have profit in mind and who have a big turnover in staff, resulting in an impersonal approach to customers. The shop alone supports 2 families who all put back into the community and support other local shops where possible. I object to any plans of retail outlets that will direct footfall away from the town that has, in the last few years, been unable to occupy all the available shops on the main high street with anything more satisfactory than charity shops and bargain store. If capital is invested anywhere, then it should be to help more independent retailers in the town centre rather than moving it away from a struggling high street to an out-of-town development. We have recently had a grocery shop open, and even more recently an independent butcher's. This is excellent for the community, and I would like to see more of the same. Thank you.
Thank you. Colin Wright, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee and members of the public. I'm coming here just as myself and voice to a few friends who often use the A585, particularly on Saturdays and Sundays for cycling. It can be a nightmare, depending on the traffic and the size of the traffic. I just cannot believe how unexpected the cycle along there if this development takes place. It's the main access route from as far as Fleetwood, Carlton, Bolton and anywhere in between. We tend to pick up friends all the way along, across the M55 by the roundabout, with fingers crossed, and then we can get over the side of the Fylde and enjoy ourselves. I notice on the plans that the developers are going to put some cycleways on the site itself. I just wonder how they expect any cyclists to get there without risking life and limb. If this was to go ahead, surely the developers should consider the wider effect on cyclists. We are non-polluting after all, and perhaps they could put some funds forward for the council, put some reasonable cycle facilities down the A585, which would mean that both the motorists and the cyclists would get along a lot better. Okay, thank you.
Sarah Reevers, please.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members and general public. My name is Sarah Beavers. I'm here as a representation for the local bridleways, which we promote safer off-road riding and try and educate drivers about the safety of horses on the road. As you'll appreciate, horses have been around since the 17th century and were the main road users, but nowadays we share the roads with cars and traffic. 100 years ago we had green fields and pastures and we were able to go out and ride in safe areas, but now we are forced onto these open roads. Due to growing populations and the need of development, the areas are disappearing fast, if not totally gone. So we have no other choice. We do share the roads with the traffic and we share responsibilities for each other's safety. Horses, I don't know if you're all aware, are very unpredictable creatures. They are naturally flight animals and they give no warning when they're fearful. So my horse alone weighs 3/4 of a tonne, and if a wagon passed far too close and it sidesteps, not only will I be injured and the horse killed, but more than likely the vehicle will be damaged and the driver and passengers could be killed also. The road in which the development site is on is a very fast road. I have witnessed people being chased onto the pavement because of the speed of the traffic. It's not a wide road, visibility is extremely poor, and now you're going to increase the volume of traffic on that road, and you're also going to increase the type of vehicles that are going to be passing these vulnerable creatures. The distribution site will be sending wagons out early morning and evening, and these are very popular times for horse riders because we try to avoid it when it's heavy traffic. The traffic increase itself will have a major impact on riders. In the local area of half a mile radius, there are at least 30 horses. Now, I appreciate these horses aren't out on the road all the time, but just because of the volume of traffic, they're then going to have to look for other places to ride. There is only one bridle path in Wesham, and that's not an easy path to get to. What I would urge all the committee members and developers to look at is to put a multi-use path around this development site. As the gentleman before has just mentioned cycles, horses are not permitted on footpaths or cycle paths, so I would urge a multi-use path is put there for horse riders, disabled people, cyclists and pedestrians. If I leave you with one thought today, there's a couple of facts I'd like you to think and mull over. The British Horse Society estimates there are 3 million horse riders in the world, in the UK, sorry. There's 8 road accidents a week involving horses and 16 people are killed each year. These accidents are generally noted to be on main rural roads, which is what this road is. So I can only urge all of you to consider these facts and bear in mind that may be a family member of your own, and it could be me and my horse. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Pat Banks, please.
Mr. Chairman, committee. Okay, let's do a reality check. If this application was granted, there would be a loss of over 12 hectares of allocated countryside outside the settlement. Contrary to officers' conclusion, a loss of 4.3 hectares of best and most versatile land. What for? A 6,000 capacity football stadium for FC5, whose average match attendances are less than 400, and season ticket holders number 60. Next season's match ticket prices are £10, concessions £7, under 16s free, season tickets £175, concession £125. Usage of stadium. But the football season does not last a full 12 months. 50% of matches are played away from home. Exactly how many days of the year would the stadium be used for matches? Do the previously mentioned figures make the stadium economically viable? Or what else will the stadium be used for to make it sustainable? Sorry about this already. The promised sports science building has been withdrawn, which would have benefited the community for our young people. The officer's report states 82 letters of objection are listed. Only 34 letters of support. From the above letters, 30 reasons are listed for objection, only 8 reasons listed for support. The officer's report does not mention, or I haven't been able to find it, the 700 signature petition recently mentioned in press reports to support this application. Also in the officer's report are 49 conditions listed, 20 of which the Highways Agency wanted. This in itself speaks volumes. In order to facilitate the oversized stadium building for a few hundred supporters, duplication of already existing services within a half-a-mile distance are apparently needed. This application is oversized and in the wrong place. It is an aspirational dream. Do not make this turn into what could become a future planning nightmare for committee members and officers. Show the red card now and say no.
Thank you. Councillor Elaine Silverwood.
Thank you, Chairman, members. I have been vilified in social media for speaking out against this application, and I've been accused of saying I do not want the stadium. So I would like to take this opportunity to say that I had not made any such statement.